All right, the trauma of the Boston Marathon bombing can really be hard to overcome for a lot of people, a lot of those runners. Psychologist Silvio joining us now live with some of the issues they could be facing, including post-traumatic stress disorder. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So this commonly known as PTSD, we got a lot of people heading back to the race this year. We were talking something very interesting. They were putting a lot of psychologists along the route this morning. Tell us a little bit about that and how useful that's going to be for these runners.
Well, that was one of the reasons that I was interested in this story, was because they were putting psychologists along the route. And a lot of people weren't really sure why they would do that. They're just running. It's just a race. What difference really would it make? It happened a year ago. And what about people who weren't even there last year?
Right.
Would this even impact them? And yet what we know is because it was the site of violence, for some people, it could still trigger some either memories if they were there, or just thoughts or visions of what may have happened last year if they weren't there last year. And so this way, you never know what could trigger somebody. It could be a sight, it could be a sound, a smell, just seeing all of the runners, seeing the cameras. If somebody happens to see a backpack off to the side, although I understand they've greatly increased security, so that's probably not as likely to happen. But even just last year on the anniversary of the bombing, there was that hoax with they had the backpack. So anybody could see something that may trigger a thought for them that could result in symptoms of anxiety. So by posting the psychologists along the route, they can be prepared in case they see somebody who's in distress, or somebody can come up to them and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody right now, because you never know. You can't predict what may or may not happen.
Those feelings of anxiousness and the sweaty palms and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about PTSD in general. This can affect a broad range of people, ages, men and women, right?
Absolutely. People can be diagnosed with PTSD, even children. They have different criteria, is how we say. But speaking strictly for adults, any kind of traumatic event can cause it. It can be anything from, a serious car accident, being a victim of crime, anything where your life is threatened, or you see somebody whose life is threatened, that sort of thing can result in PTSD. Now, I will say, actually receiving a diagnosis of PTSD is not as common. A lot of times in the media, people throw around the expression PTSD, they have PTSD.
Right.
They may have symptoms, and they may be very, very distressed by those symptoms. But they don't often meet criteria for it. So there is a little bit of a distinction there.
So tell us a little bit about a treatment for a lot of people at home who maybe aren't running today, but they're going to be watching, having their eyes on this race today. Just to get an idea, people who have been diagnosed or have some of these symptoms, what are some things they can do? I know in the last hour we talked about yoga has proven to be very great for men and women. What else would you say?
Sure. Certainly anything that helps to encourage relaxation is a great thing to do. That's why something like yoga would be good. Even just going for a walk, doing some deep breathing, any kind of solitary focused exercise, believe it or not, even just like cleaning dishes or vacuuming, any of those kinds of things where you're really focused on what you're doing, measuring your breaths, that sort of thing can be helpful. One of the things that we do in therapy that certainly any of your viewers can do is pay attention to what you're telling yourself, because a lot of times where the anxiety is coming from is that I'm telling myself, oh my gosh, something's going to happen. I'm preparing myself for this bad outcome that isn't necessarily going to happen. In fact, in most cases isn't, and yet we start to feel like it's going to be happening because of the way we're talking to ourselves.
We work ourselves up because of the anticipation of something that might never happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, all lots of good things to think about, and I'm sure, as you would say to a lot of people, if they're having some of these symptoms, really having trouble, consult a professional.
Absolutely.
Okay. Silvio, thank you so much for coming in studio. We appreciate your time.